At one point in time, Khamzat Chimaev was projected to be the biggest star in the UFC going forward. At least the biggest star since Conor McGregor, honestly. I feel like his ceiling was higher than Sean O'Malley, Israel Adesanya, the more modern stars that we have today. But then it all completely fell apart, and this video is going to be explaining how Khamzat Chimaev lost his hype throughout as time has gone on. We begin with him making his debut at the UFC, with back-to-back wins within 9-day span of each other, the quickest turnaround in the history of the UFC that garnered him a huge amount of hype, and then just a month and a half later, he knocks out Gerald Meerschaert in 20 seconds or so, I believe. Out cold, in 66 days he has 3 fights in a row that he's won, and that's the quickest that any fighter has ever done that. Now, right after that, they schedule him to fight Leon Edwards, who was ranked number 3 at the time, and Khamzat Chimaev was only ranked 15. So obviously the UFC was obviously from the beginning trying to push him to do a title shot. In 2020, he was scheduled to fight in a title eliminator bout, arguably. And that fight, unfortunately, due to the Rona V, got cancelled because Leon Edwards tested positive, and so did Khamzat Chimaev. They both did. They both tested positive. The fight was rescheduled for the first week of 2021, and the first fight night in the main event slot. Khamzat Chimaev isn't ready to go. He's not ready to go because he's still recovering. The fight is scheduled for a third time now, a few months later in March, and this time around, apparently Khamzat Chimaev is still struck down from the virus. Like, he was not ready to go. There were some lingering effects that he had, and then he does not get on to another fight for, I believe, until October of that exact same year. For some reason, there's a huge layoff. He doesn't recover in time. He does end up fighting Li Jingliang, though, who he destroys, and the hype train is right back on track. It's right back on track, I say, but when he was right before he fought Li Jingliang, he posted that he was retiring. Now, he posted in Twitter in his Russian language, which is translated to English here. "Thank you all so much for supporting me. In my journey in this sport, I think I'm done." He added that while he didn't win a title, it's not the most important victory in his life. "It may upset you, but my heart and body tell me everything," he wrote. So obviously Khamzat Chimaev has clear issues with health. It's quite clear at this point. Like, there's been multiple times he's been had to pull out, and it's not just because of the virus every single time, as we'll get into later on. But there has been problems with Khamzat Chimaev in his body, which made him think that he wasn't ready for the UFC life, the hard training. Like, basically his body would fail him eventually. But then something happens. Right after he beats Li Jingliang, he gets into a love relation, not a love, a bromance with Darren Till. They form one of the most iconic, not one of the most iconic, but one of the most wholesome duos of that year. Like, it was just a lot of fun and pleasure seeing both of them together and like rejuvenating each other's career, and we got to see a different side of Khamzat Chimaev that we wouldn't have ever seen otherwise. And this is how they met. Let me just show you guys how they met. Darren Till explains it quite well. I'll let him take the reign here.
You know what, we were messaging back and forth at the start, and we were like, we'll fight each other and that. And then we just, from nowhere, we just like, what happened in a true story is my company that I own now, Block Asset, we wanted to do a partnership with him, and obviously we got that deal over the line. But then like me and Khamzat were speaking on a personal level, and he was like, "Till, why don't you come out and get some training with me?" And I was like, well, okay, I will. So I spoke to my coach, Colin.
That's all you need to hear. So obviously Darren Till had a lot to gain in this relationship. He was coming off a multiple fight losing skid. Khamzat Chimaev was in the top of the world. Like, he was one of the most hyped prospects in the sport, let's be honest here, when he eventually fought Gilbert Burns with Darren Till by his corner. Ranked number 2 Gilbert Burns on the world, by the way. When he did that, Khamzat Chimaev was already being gifted title shot opportunities. Like, he was on track to a title, according to the UFC, according to the fans, according to everybody. His career was on track, and that fight with Gilbert Burns was bigger than the 2 title fights that followed it afterwards. You know what I mean? Darren Till, on the other hand, Whitaker, Brunson had both given him L's back to back, and Darren Till had pulled out of a few fights himself, so he wasn't the best influence. But, you know, at the time we were like, this is kind of wholesome, this is kind of cute. This is great, but you got to think about it like this, right? I'm about to show you another clip of Darren Till and Khamzat Chimaev acting the way they do. But when have you ever seen a Russian fighter live this kind of lifestyle? Not lifestyle, but act like this in public, where instead of just praying to God and Allah and talking about how hard they're training and all that, instead they go into a shopping mall and just effing around, really. Let's just look. And there's a few clips here. This is uploaded by UFC Denk, so go to his channel. I'm just using some of your content, UFC Denk.
I don't stay close to...
Basically being a public menace, Darren Till is, and as you can see, Khamzat Chimaev is in the trolley which is pushing around. And yeah, Khamzat Chimaev's enjoying his time with Darren Till. Like, it's quite a wholesome sight to behold, but why are you out and about, Khamzat? You know what I mean? Like, I know you can have fun. It's not all train. I know you can get your training in and you have time for yourself. But I swear none of these videos ever came out when he wasn't with Darren Till. Maybe you could say, oh, well, there was more spotlight on him because of Darren Till. I suppose that is true. Everyone was talking about the bromance between Darren Till and Khamzat Chimaev. But I just feel like that wasn't the side of Khamzat we were seeing. We were seeing intensity. We were seeing, like, personality from Khamzat Chimaev. But it was mostly, like, aggression towards his opponent and how he's going to destroy them really fast. And now all of a sudden we're seeing stuff like...
This guy, brother, he got...
Hey, do you reckon it'd be bad if I turned around and shot you in the leg? No, do you reckon it would? Khamzat, do you think it's a bad thing if I turn around and shoot your leg?
That's good.
But now we're friends, right?
Did you pay us money?
No.
If you pay money, you're our best friend.
This is the last one.
Run.
Even his posture became more soy. Look at the way he's running. Just completely soy. But yeah, obviously Khamzat Chimaev is having fun, and this is understandable. Darren Till is a very fun personality. He seems like a fun dude to hang around with. Like, he's like the kind of dude where you're like, okay, your friends all break off into like groups, and you're like, okay, I want to be with that guy. And that's the guy that Darren Till is. Like, you know it'll be a good time no matter what. But how much is he helping Khamzat Chimaev? Because we know Khamzat Chimaev is already on the top of the world. He was scheduled to fight Gilbert Burns. He beats Gilbert Burns in a war, by the way. The first close fight he's had in his career after he gets with Darren Till. But it was the toughest competition, so I'm not willing to say it was Darren Till's fault. But Darren Till had far more to gain in this scenario than Khamzat Chimaev did. And keep in mind, after Darren Till trained with Chimaev, he was pulling out of fights himself. I remember the Jack Hermanson fight that he pulled out of. I remember him pulling out of Vettori. That was before Chimaev, but still. He was pulling out a lot, like a fair bit himself, to be honest. Yeah, so he was not the best influence, in my opinion. But also, Darren Till had more to gain. Like, and once he gained all the hype and the exposure and the training with Chimaev, he fought Dricus du Plessis, who finished him in the 3rd round, I believe. So, Darren Till got nothing out of it in terms of advancing his fighting career. Chimaev might have taken a step backwards, on the other hand. It felt like Darren Till had a torn ACL every single fight he was a part of. But anyway, let's talk about some more degeneracy they were a part of. Michael Bisping talking about how basically Khamzat Chimaev is an unhinged driver. And he was driving on the wrong side of the road and all that. Let's just get Michael Bisping's words on it.
BMW while they're here. So we get in the car, Khamzat's driving. Now, I don't know if he has the driving license or not. And I don't know how tough it is to get a driving license in Chechnya because the motherfucker is out of his mind behind the wheel of a car. He is driving like a psychopath. And him and Darren are in the front. Darren's 28. I think Khamzat's 25 or 26.
Just to show you how much the hype has been squandered. Khamzat Chimaev right now is 30 years of age. He's 30 years old. At the time, he was 25, 26. Trajectory was a title by 27. All these years later, now we're finally getting a title eliminator bout from Khamzat Chimaev that might actually turn into a title shot this weekend.
Younger
In
guys,
2024.
right? Maybe when I was younger, I would have thought it was hilarious as well. But I'm 43 in the back with 3 kids and a wife. Do you know that I want to get back to? And I'm like, fuck, get my seatbelt on. Khamzat's, he's driving like a nutter. He's going.
So Khamzat Chimaev is obviously speeding a lot. Like, he's apparently might not have a driver's license, and despite all of that, he's just like zooming all the way on the road. But then let's find out what side of the road he's zooming
down
on.
the wrong side of the road. I'm like, Khamzat, you're on the wrong side of the road. He's like, brother, it's no problem, it's good. And I'm like, shit my pants. Darren thinks it's fucking hilarious.
Of course Darren thinks he's fucking hilarious. Like, Darren Till is encouraging this behavior from Khamzat Chimaev. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think this is the end of the world. Khamzat Chimaev is allowed to have fun, but he is breaking the law here. Like, think about that. Doesn't have a license, potentially. is driving over the speed limit, definitely, and is on the wrong side of the road. Even
So,
Anthony Smith's face right now. I mean, he's smiling right now, but let's go. Before he seemed worried before, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't surprise me. Anthony Smith himself has crashed his own vehicle under the influence, so I don't doubt he cares. But Chimaev, wrong side of the road. Calm down, brother. Calm down, brother. While Darren Till is like, don't worry, mate. You know what I mean? Like, he's encouraging this behavior. Like, before, Khamzat Chimaev didn't have that eccentric personality who himself was a degenerate, like Darren Till, pushing or edging on Khamzat Chimaev. So before, if he does something like this, maybe it's his manager, maybe it's his like training partner, maybe it's his wife. I mean, not his wife at the time. Maybe it's someone close to him, like a relative, and they're just like, okay, brother, calm down. Like, you know, go train now. Train 3 times in a row. The 3rd time. And now Darren Till is just like, let's skip training, mate. Let's go skip training, mate. And we'll go out, do a little drive on the wrong side of the road. You know what I mean? That's what he's up. That's what Khamzat Chimaev is up to now. And that was quite fun to do, that impression. I've never, you know, I see other people doing it. And anyway, after all of this Darren Till nonsense, he beats Gilbert Burns, and then he's scheduled to fight Nate Diaz in a gimme fight. A literal open layup where there's no one guarding you. There's an open lane. Just drive down that lane. No one's guarding you. Just hit a normal layup. And we're off to the races. And for that, we're going to give you a shot at the NBA Championship. Imagine that. Not the NBA Championship. The UFC Championship. He has to beat Nate Diaz, who was on his last fight. The UFC obviously wanted him to lose. So they decided that Khamzat Chimaev, their big next hype monster, was going to take anything that remains of Nate Diaz's hype. Because think about this. If the Diaz army watches this fight and they see Khamzat Chimaev destroy their hero, that huge fan base that the Diaz brothers command, they'll be like, oh no, this Chechenian guy, he's a gangster. You know what I mean? Like, because Khamzat Chimaev acts the right way, I would say. He wants to fight every single person. The same way the Diaz bros do, seems to be, in my opinion. And that's all he has to do is show up, literally train for maybe 2 weeks, and I think he would have got Nate Diaz out of there. But come weigh-in day, he misses weight not by 1, not by 2, not by 3, not by 4, not by 5, not by 6, not by 7, but 7.5 pounds for his main event of a pay-per-view. They built an event around Khamzat Chimaev and Nate Diaz, just for Khamzat Chimaev to have the most eyeballs possible on him when he finally breaks through and becomes this next big star and challenges Kamaru Usman for the title. Because he was already ranked high enough for a title shot. He was ranked number 3. He beat Gilbert Burns. But they just wanted to add that extra bit of hype to him. You know, like, make sure that the pay-per-view does really, really good numbers. Make sure as many fans are a fan of Khamzat Chimaev when he wins the title as possible. And he does this, and the way he acts is kind of crazy. And this is where the real downfall of the hype begins, in my opinion.
178 and a half.
178 and a half.
You hear that? They announced the weight, and he was smirking beforehand. Like he knew what was about to happen. He didn't look remorseful. He didn't look nothing. And he was like, oh, not bad, right? Not that bad. Who's teaching you this stuff? 7.5 pounds, to the point where Nate Diaz didn't even fight him. He had to fight Kevin Holland instead of Nate Diaz. So that took away from him. He got demoted to the co-main event spot, while Nate Diaz fought Tony Ferguson in a complete farce of a fight. But yeah, and that was just an open layup that he just threw away. And I mean, there is a reasoning behind it, but here is the big thing. Like, that was such a missed opportunity. Like, the only better opportunity you would get at the time is maybe if you fought Conor McGregor, obviously. But other than that, I mean, we're looking at maybe Masvidal, Adesanya, but Adesanya's not a layup. Adesanya's a tough fight. No one's in as easy a fight as Nate Diaz is, that pays him the amount that it would. Now, this was his explanation to why he missed weight.
I don't know, something was wrong with my body. It's like, I want to continue, and there come some doctor, somebody called them, so I don't know who was that. So then they stopped, you know, so I couldn't do something. I said, I can do it, like, just wait, and that was like 4 o'clock at night, so I had a lot of time, so they didn't let me know.
So anyway, apparently the reason the fight was pulled was because Khamzat Chimaev, the doctors came into Khamzat Chimaev's room at 4 a.m. and said, no more, you've cut enough weight. And if I'm being honest with you, at 4 a.m., I understand he has a fair few hours left to make weight, but these doctors aren't just going to tell you to stop cutting weight. Like, they want the UFC event to go on. They don't want to be an inconvenience to Dana White in any way whatsoever. They also did it to Max Holloway when he was about to fight Khabib Nurmagomedov. But Max Holloway is probably really badly depleting himself and probably about to maybe do some real bad harm to his body overall by trying to cut all that weight. I feel like Khamzat Chimaev was probably in a similar situation. He's not telling us the full story. Like, I bet you he was like shivering or like trembling up, trying to cut some weight. Maybe they were like, okay, drink some water, and then that's why he got up to 7.5 pounds. Maybe he was only like 2 or 3 pounds off, trying to cut that last bit of like weight cut, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I'm like, you made weight on 9 days notice, I believe, to the welterweight division. You made weight to welterweight on 9 days notice. Why can't you do that here? You have a whole training camp, get your weight sorted out. Could it be that maybe instead of keeping your eating habits in check, you were potentially hanging out with Darren Till, going out for a drive, grabbing a burger to eat maybe, along with a pint of beer, some salt, a little bit of gravy, a full pub meal, let's be honest here. Because I don't think Darren Till is taking his career too seriously. He's just had to have fun, sell his crypto, or not his crypto, what's this called? Whatever his company's called. Sell some products off of that. Damn, it's gonna bug me now, I don't know. But anyway, Khamzat Chimaev was introduced to this degenerate lifestyle, and after this fight, where he didn't even get the main event, he didn't fight for a whole year, which brings up the speculation of, is he only allowed to fight in Middle Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia and Abu Dhabi? I think he is. Because for some reason, every fight since this one right here, he has been scheduled nowhere but the Middle Eastern. And that could be because of his relationship with a dictator of Chechnya, who is a big Khamzat fan. He hangs out with Khamzat Chimaev. He was even at Khamzat Chimaev's own wedding. He showed up, the ruler, the king of Chechnya, let's be honest here, showed up to the wedding of Khamzat Chimaev to be in attendance. They have some relationship, and I feel like his relationship with a dictator of a Russian or semi-Russian country like Chechnya, probably a red flag for United States. And I don't think they want Khamzat Chimaev to fight in like non-United States countries anyway, because that's the big money is going to be in Las Vegas, Madison Square Garden. That's where the big money's at, you know what I mean? So yeah, weirdness, yeah, takes him a whole year. A whole year later, from September of 2022, all the way to October of 2023, Khamzat finally gets a fight against Paulo Costa, but this time Costa pulls out. The hype has taken a huge damage. We haven't seen Khamzat in so long. He missed weight, but he did destroy Kevin Holland in the first round. So we're like, okay, forget Nate Diaz. He's a bum anyway. Let's move on to something else, you know, like let's get Colby Covington going, let's get this going. Khamzat Chimaev was calling out Pereira, Adesanya, Whitaker, Colby, Usman, you name it, Paulo Costa, because in UFC 279, the event that Khamzat missed weight in, him and Paulo Costa have a run-in backstage where he tells Paulo Costa that he's gonna fuck him in the ass, which is kind of crazy because a Russian mixed martial artist, Muslim, usually will never say something like that. They're actually quite anti that kind of stuff. Not the trash talking part, but the words that I said and what the literal meaning of those words are. Quite anti that stuff. So it's quite surprising to me that despite all of that, he would still drop that language on Paulo Costa. Nothing like, I destroy you, brother. I respect you, but I want to take you down and beat you up. Nothing like that. He just straight up says, I'm a F you in the A. You know what I mean? And Paulo Costa's like, okay, bring it on, I'll fight you. And then a whole year and a month later, like 13 months later, the fight's announced. Paulo Costa pulls out because of a elbow injury just a few weeks before, because he has a surgery on it. An elbow surgery, so which is kind of weird, because like, why are you having a surgery before a fight? Like a few weeks before a fight? Surely, like, you know, maybe the UFC didn't make that fight official, maybe they had a verbal contract, who knows. Anyway, Kamaru Usman comes in, coming off 2 losses to Leon Edwards. He's on 2-fight slide, takes a short notice fight with Khamzat in middleweight. Arguably wins the fight, because Khamzat got a 10-8 on the first round. And I don't know if that should have been a 10-8, because there wasn't enough damage done. There was submission threats, and he did control him for a while. So I can see the argument for it, but if it was me, I wouldn't do it. But it's the Middle East. Anything close will go to him. They don't have a commission there. There's no commission in the Middle East. Maybe that's why they're having him fight there. Just to have everything in his favor. But anyway, if it's a close round, it's going to Khamzat, especially 2 and 3, which were really close rounds. I thought Usman won. I thought a draw was probably the right call here. If not Usman winning, if one of them had to win, I thought Usman just slightly took over, and in a 5-round fight he would have. But these judges, they just gave Khamzat one of the 2 close rounds. It was crazy. Crazy. And then when people watch that, they're like, okay, when he fights high-level competition, it's not the same as when he's fighting Li Jingliang. We were expecting finishes, but then he goes to a close fight with Kamaru Usman, a war with Gilbert Burns. Other than that, anyone outside the top 10 he's destroying and mollywopping, obviously. But is this guy just overhyped? I think people are starting to think at this point, like, he's not having these incredible performances anymore. Getting saved by, honestly, some dodgy commissions, if I'm being completely honest with you, or lack of commissions. But anyway, he beats Kamaru Usman. Then right after beating Kamaru Usman, this comes out of nowhere. So he has, his skin is mottled, whatever that means, and swollen, and his eyes are bloodshot. He apparently had an allergy attack before the Kamaru fight. And look at this picture here. He has an oxygen mask on, his face is bloated like all hell, he has red marks all over his body, he's got fat tits on him, has no muscle definition whatsoever, not ripped in any way, doesn't look strong, doesn't look like a fighter, looks like a fat slob that goes to Macca's twice a day. His hand's broken in the fight apparently, so that's going to delay him even longer. I was very sick, this is what he had to say. I was very sick, Chimaev said in his caption, my hand was injured so I couldn't return right away. I want to tell all my fans, I want to see myself in battle more than all of you, basically saying he wants to be back in the cage, even more than we want him to be back in the cage. I love this job, I will do and prove that I am the best, as always we do, and I will be back soon to, inshallah, training. So yeah, the trend of before continues here, where Khamzat Chimaev's body is just giving out on him. He keeps getting sick over and over again, and he gets sick one more time after this, by the way, but this is just after the Usman fight, all this information comes out. Apparently he wasn't the best, and maybe that's why his performances haven't been the best in the world, that Usman, a welterweight, can just move up to middleweight on short notice and arguably beat him. That's what we're looking at here. That's the extent of what we're looking at here. And then he's scheduled to fight Robert Whittaker in the main event of a UFC fight night in June of 2024, earlier this year. Pulls out. No one knows why. It was reported it was food poisoning, but if you're reading there, this is his friend apparently. All these fake rumors about Khamzat pulling out due to food poisoning is absolutely BS. I was part of the camp and behind the scenes. As a brother, I won't share his dark times, but trust me when I say he was very sick and hospitalized. The guy is a beast, and to see him so bad wasn't a good time for us all. His friend Khan wrote, obviously. Nothing down there. Anyway, apparently it wasn't food poisoning. Apparently his body gave out one more time, again. Time after time again. The trilogy of pullouts with Leon Edwards. The weight miss wasn't a health issue, but he was probably going to have a health issue if he kept cutting weight. So he pulls out of the Nate Diaz fight. We're looking at him pulling out of... not pulling out, but he did get really badly, disease-ridden after the Usman fight, and then right before the Robert Whittaker fight, he pulls out because of something bizarre happening, and he had to go to the hospital, and all these things had to happen. By now, he's fighting once a year, and he's not looking as good as he did. With these MMA fans, you've got to remember, like, memory, like, what happened recently is key. Like, we've got to know what's happening now. Hey, okay, you beat him, you're going to fight him next, you're going to fight him next, okay, then you're going to beat him. If you beat him, you get a title shot. If you don't beat him, then you fight this guy, and you fight that guy, and you got this guy. You have to be in the conversation. You have to be part of the conversation at all times in mixed martial arts. That's why Alex Pereira has garnered such a massive fan base. Obviously, he beat Israel Adesanya, but even outside of that, the fact that he fought 3 times, get this right, almost... the last 3 years he's been in the UFC, he has fought 3 times every single year. This year he fought 3 times. Last year he fought 3 times. The year before that he fought 3 times. He's every time you're thinking about, okay, like looking past Alex Pereira, he's back on the trend, either whether that's his name being attached to Adesanya, whether that's his name attached to a weight division move up, which is something Khamzat Chimaev actually promised us. He would promised us a 2-division world championship. He promised a championship at welterweight. All of a sudden couldn't make welterweight, wasn't healthy enough, never went back there ever again, despite early in his career making it on 9 days notice. Darren Till has to be the problem here. Like, something's got to happen with him. October. And then he's only fighting in Abu Dhabi, which is hurting his hype because he's limiting him to the amount of cards and exposure he can gain. Because keep in mind, these Middle Eastern cards happen earlier in the day than the normal UFC cards, meaning probably less people are watching them. Because Chael Sonnen once did say no card that starts at this time, like basically Middle Eastern time, has ever performed in the top 10 pay-per-view sales or top 20 or something like that. And I think the same thing's happening. Less people are watching Khamzat, less people are interested. He's out of everyone's mind, and now he fights Robert Whittaker this weekend at UFC 308. And what if he loses? That's the end of Khamzat. Well, not the end, but he'll fight Paulo Costa, and then after that maybe look to fight another title eliminator. Because they like him, so they won't make him work too hard for it, but it feels like a lot went into this. There was a lot of steps. The inactivity, not the injury, but the illnesses, the Darren Till friendship, honestly, even though it was really cool to see at the time, in hindsight, in the long term, probably hurt him. And his Chad mentality that he had beforehand, where he was just, like Khabib said, Allah. That wasn't Khabib. Someone said all he does is pray to Allah. Andrew Tate said that. All he does is pray to Allah, fight, train, eat, sleep, Allah, fight, train, sleep, eat, repeat. Khamzat has deviated from that, and yeah, not as big a star as Adesanya right now, I wouldn't say. I wouldn't say he's as big a star as Pereira right now. And it's annoying because he's calling all these people out back in the day and he's not ready to fight any of them. He's fighting once a year. And I want Whittaker to win. And I'm just going to finish off on this. Because think about this. If Khamzat Chimaev wins, do we have to wait for a title shot till October of next year for the pay-per-view? Okay, Khamzat will main event 321. Or 322, I don't know. Whatever would fall on. Maybe like 318, I don't know. Well, what happens then? A full year to see Khamzat fight again? No. Stop this. Have him fight more soon. Simple as that. Like, share, and subscribe. Come on, Khamzat. Pull this shit out the fire, man. Like, share, subscribe. I'm on 56 subscribers. Let's get me to 60, guys. And that is how Khamzat Chimaev lost his hype. Inactivity. Overtraining, to be honest. Because apparently Gustafsson said he trains too much. His relationship with a dictator, which has probably limited him to not be able to enter the United States. Did I mention activity? Inactivity. Not looking as good as he did in the past. And Darren Till, if I didn't mention him. 56 subscribers. Let's get me to 60. See you guys. Like, share, subscribe. Bye.